can add FBI director to the dozens of vacant positions in the Trump administration. Yesterday, President Donald Trump fired James Comey, a move that caught many in Washington, the media, and reportedly even Comey himself off guard. The Trump administration cited Comey's handling of the Clinton email review as reason for his dismissal. He had been heading up the investigation into possible ties between the Trump campaign and Russia and was due to testify before lawmakers tomorrow, a fact that had members of both parties questioning the timing. But today, Vice President Mike Pence denied any correlation.
The president has been told he's not under investigation. The director of national intelligence said there is no evidence of collusion between our campaign and any Russian officials. That's not what. But let me be clear with you. That was not what this is about.
The question is, why did it happen last night? We know Director Comey was leading an investigation in whether the Trump campaign colluded with the Russians, a serious offense. Were those investigations getting too close to home for the president?
The search for Comey's replacement has already begun, but is there anyone who both sides of the aisle would have faith in? Joining me are Kim Strassel, author and editorial board member at the Wall Street Journal, Heather Cox Richardson, a professor of political history at Boston College, and Evan Horowitz, policy writer at the Boston Globe. Thank you all for coming in. So, Kim, you tweeted earlier today your approval of this move. You said, Comey needs to go, too politicized. Final finding on Russia would have been doubted. This is actually a chance for a fresh start. Who would have doubted Comey's final finding on Russia, whatever it had been?
I think everyone. Look, Republicans would have, because they have been very critical of the fact that this FBI investigation has gone on for as long as they do. They think that he is a politicized person. Democrats, look, as recently as last week, were accusing him of partisan chicanery. Chuck Schumer was out there saying that he needed to resign earlier this year. So they don't have a lot of faith in him either. And so whatever comes out of this Russian investigation, we need it to stick and to put it behind us in this country one way or the other.
Aren't we going to end up with a situation now where whatever the final outcome of the investigation is going to be doubted by about half the country, because the president will be hiring Comey's successor as Comey's successor investigates ties between the Trump campaign and the Russians?
I think the important thing is to wait and see who that successor is. There are people out there, although don't ask me to name any names just right now, but there are people out there that stand a little bit above politics. And let's see who he gets first before that. Also, look, remember, none of this is going to be hidden in the end, okay? There are dozens of people presumably working on this in the FBI. They're still working on it, even though Comey has left. And if anything is thrown under the carpet or they are told to stop, that will leak. It will come out.
Evan Horowitz, you tried to find what seemed to me like sort of an analytical third way in a piece you wrote for the Globe. There's been a lot of commentary that's fallen along partisan lines, but you came up with a somewhat counterintuitive take on Comey's firing. Can you just explain what it was?
Yeah, that is, Comey deserved to go because he had genuinely violated important norms about what the FBI director should and shouldn't do during the investigation of the Clinton email scandal. But that doesn't mean we should trust Trump's motives in firing him. There is a good rationale for getting rid of him, but not a good rationale, I think, for just accepting that things will probably go well from here. If the motivation was, and we really don't know, obstruction of justice or dissatisfaction with a subordinate, it seems to me whoever replaces Comey at this point will be working under a pall from Trump and the White House.
What kind of response did you get from Globe readers to your column? It was the second most read piece on the Globe's website when I checked in a couple hours ago. Yeah, just the second. I'm sure you're at number one.
I'll have to be more controversial next time.
What were you hearing from readers?
I had some strange bedfellows on this one, not common, but I think, this really activated the outrage machine. That is the firing of Comey. And so people who jumped immediately to it's time for impeachment were not happy that I was critical of Comey and arguing that, in fact, I think he, too, has been undermining important democratic norms that keep our government functioning.
So along those lines, Heather Cox Richardson, I want you to do a little thought experiment with me. Let's say Hillary Clinton had been elected president, and let's say that the day after her inauguration, she had announced that she was going to be firing James Comey. What would your reaction have been to that announcement?
That it was a mistake.
Why?
Because the director of the FBI is a 10-year term, and that has always been honored, except with the exception of the dismissal of Sessions under Clinton, and that was after a long, 6-month-long investigation and like a 161-page report outlining his ethical problems. There is an assumption that the FBI is going to be outside of the normal political partisanship, and anybody who takes the extraordinary step of firing a special prosecutor in Nixon's case, or in this case the FBI director who is conducting not one but I believe 2 investigations into the people around the presidency, you're taking the risk of an enormous political blowback. And in fact, that's what we've got, and their rumors are that the White House didn't see it coming. How they could not have seen it coming, one cannot imagine after Nixon.
I should point out that even though the FBI does serve a 10-year term, to be insulated from politics, that the president does have the authority to make a change.
It's perfectly legal to have done so.
It's also the case, just to point out, though, that while they have a 10-year term, in reality, in modern times, very few FBI directors have served for longer than 3 or 4 years.
It is fair to say, isn't it, that there are a lot of Democrats who would have cheered Comey's firing, who would not have had the same reservations.
That's not what you asked me.
Right,
you asked me what I would have said. I would have said it was a
That's
political
why,
mistake.
if I were labeling these questions, I would say this is question number 2 for Heather Cox Richardson. Is it fair to say that a lot of Democrats would have applauded if Hillary Clinton had won the presidency and canned Comey?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
If Hillary Clinton had won the presidency, though, the case against Comey would be weaker. That is part of the case against Comey is that he threw the presidency to Trump.
That's an excellent point. So the thought experiment's a little flawed. Kim Strassel, isn't it a little rich for the Trump administration to argue that Comey is being let go in part because he mishandled the Clinton email investigation, when the president, as a candidate, was basically he was the president of the Jim Comey fan club. He was saying on the stump routinely how great it was that Comey was sticking it to Hillary, right? So there's a little dissonance there.
Well, look, I don't really think that of all the things we expect from President Trump, it's consistency, okay? That's just probably not like the hallmark of his administration so far, okay? Look, the real mistake that Mr. Trump has made is not doing this the minute he took office. You said if Hillary Clinton the day after, that's what he should have done. Because if you look at the letters that accompanied the letter that he sent to Mr. Comey that laid out the rationale for this. It made the point, and this is true because I have talked to these people as well, too. That
you're talking the Rob Rosenstein
letter? The Rob Rosenstein letter that talks about everything that he did, in fact, do wrong in the Hillary Clinton investigation in terms of interviews and taking evidence and all of that, not to mention the press conferences and making the decision on his own outside of the AG and prosecutors. But I think the bigger point is that all kinds of officials, both sides of the aisle, agreed that behavior was incorrect. And President Obama was not going to get rid of him. That would have been a problem. But President Trump would have been in his right to do it immediately. By waiting, he's left this timing question.
Probably worth mentioning, too, that Comey misrepresented, was it the number of emails that Huma Abedin had sent to Anthony Weiner, right, for printing out? And the FBI had to clarify that. So it was another thing he screwed up recently.
By large magnitude, yes.
He said tens of thousands. Yeah.
Evan Horowitz, there's a quote that's been making the rounds today, which I'm sure you've seen. It's a Lyndon Baines Johnson quote about former FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover. The president said of the former FBI director, it's probably better to have him inside the tent pissing out than outside the tent pissing in. James Comey is now outside the FBI tent. How do you think he's going to comport himself?
I think that is a really interesting and totally uncertain question. He's been called or requested to testify before Congress. I don't know if he's going to show up or what he's going to say.
Yeah, as of the time we're taping this, that's an unanswered question.
And he clearly has a lot of information that he could share openly or by whispering in people's ears. And I don't know, again, consistency not something we expect from President Trump, thoughtful consideration of all consequences, not something I often associate with President Trump. I don't know that he's really thought through the consequences of this decision.
Heather Cox Richardson, if you were, I keep giving you these.
I'm a historian. I can tell you what happened in the past.
Hillary Clinton, based on recent and deep
private
political history,
Hillary Clinton, yes.
Should Hillary Clinton be concerned about her legal status as Trump gears up to hire a new FBI director?
No.
No.
Why would she be concerned about her legal status?
Evan,
The lock her up problem. Is the next person going to move
yeah,
her?
the repeated
If
campaign
we
vows
need
to
to
lock
be-
her up, and the president has said, he thought that Comey gave her a free pass. He
come
wasn't.
on.
It's what I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm saying it's what the president has said. So should she be worried that she may face renewed legal
Well, remember,
jeopardy?
as soon as he got into the presidency, he said, we're not going to do that.
Which is wise.
Yeah, well, if Hillary Clinton needs to be worried, we all need to be worried, because that will be an extraordinary indication of just how far our democratic norms have fallen, and they are very much under attack right now. It's something to be looking for, but I tend often to predict negative things. If that happens, I think that will be the last of a lot more straws that are going to fall first.
Look, I think that there's also an institutional question here, too. I was reading some coverage today saying that some FBI members were outraged about this. There are plenty more that have been very concerned about the negative press that have come to the institution because of Comey's actions. And there is a loss of faith among the public with the FBI at the moment, and we need to get somebody that can restore that.
I want to ask all three of you, lightning round, because we got to get out of the segment, unfortunately. Pure coincidence that Comey was let go the day before President Trump met with the Russian foreign minister and ambassador. Evan?
Pure but revealing coincidence.
All right, Heather?
Much less of a coincidence that there was that testimony yesterday that showed up across his Twitter heading.
All right, Kim Strassel, final
Yeah,
word
pure
to you.
coincidence,
Pure
just
coincidence.
lack of thought, timing.
All right, Kimberly Strassel, Heather Cox Richardson, Evan Horowitz, thank you all.